how can we use hospitality as a main value? Like, what does that mean? What does that mean in practice? How can we be more hospitable to each other? And for me, that's also a lot about valuing in the sense of, you mentioned the corporate world, and that tends to be about profit, right? So money is valued, and that often tends to be that's valued in the priority over other things, right? So how can we be more hospitable to other things aside from that? What does that mean in practice? And not just in that context, but really everywhere in our day-to-day life. Some of the work we've even been doing in terms of like evaluating student writing is we've asked students to think, how can you write in a hospitable way to your reader? So thinking in terms of, having that kind of value or ethic embodied in all that you're doing, in consumer choices, how can you be more hospitable in what you buy in terms of how whatever you buy has treated other human beings and the earth in the process of how that was created. So for me, that's a term that can be used in all sorts of ways, and it's a real shift, I think, to try and process that.
Being hospitable, valuing other people's values? Is that what it means?
On some level, but I guess it also, I suppose it would also be what kind of values you're talking about. I think right now in the U.S. with all the uprising that's going on, across the U.S., even here in this very small rural place I'm living, there's been a series of protests. And, I think that's really trying to get us to rethink what police hospitality means, what race hospitality means. And so is it valuing then anyone's values? I don't think so. I think it's trying to get more of the core of who we are as human beings and how we're hospitable to each other. And more importantly, how we are not and how we don't understand how we are not, and trying to be open to learning and listening more about that. So,
because one of the elements of your ecoversities movement and courses that you've been developing is working with Indigenous knowledges and Indigenous sort of thing. Have you seen, what is there anything you could say there about the values? Because that's quite interesting.
Those values actually have been probably the most profound shifts and impacts on me. So my partner and I, we both had academic jobs in the UK. He's from Brazil and the UK, both. And we left, I think it was 2012. And we decided to travel to a bunch of alternative kind of higher education places that were started from Indigenous communities and social movements. So really actually valuing, what learning means, what it could mean, what it should mean for community and for place. And a lot of these were connected with Native American, First Nations, Aboriginal, Indigenous. These terms are, they're used in different ways, but there's profound learnings that we experience, and hospitality really is one of them. And other terms that are connected, like interconnection. Like if you see yourself only as interconnected with everything around you, meaning like everything around you is part of your family, you have a very different sense of what hospitality means. Like it doesn't mean just inviting someone into your home and giving them a cup of tea. It like goes way beyond that, And so, and I think as a person not in that culture, growing up in a white, non-Indigenous culture that didn't really think about any of that, it's had a big impact.
You talked to me a little bit about something I love, and that's reciprocity. So we're exposing and discussing new values here within the sustainable development world, within different fields that you wouldn't see on a signpost around a primary school board, for example. but maybe they're used in different ways. Reciprocity might just be linked to friendliness, but it's deeper and more complex. So do you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, sure. I think it is very much linked with hospitality, but I think it's more action based almost. Hospitality is too, but and it's not just, be kind to others as you want to, or treat others as you want to be treated, which is, I think, a basic tenet that, I at least learned as a kid here in the US. I heard that all all the time, and just, you know, behavior and how you treat other people. But for me, it's also just the idea of taking, really, and consumption, I think, you know, meaning like what we buy, what we use, and trying to kind of slow that down and think more, you know, what do we really need versus what we want as part of this. So how much are we taking? And some of the, you know, again, this does link with some of the kind of indigenous wisdom I've come across. And it's also the idea of, you know, if you grow something, you don't take everything, you take enough that sustains you. And so whatever you leave can sustain itself. And you're also giving something in a process, meaning you're giving more intention, or maybe you're growing something else, but it's like, it's a more intentional kind of give take process. Because I feel like in our world, it's so easy just to take. I mean, we consume, we extract, you know, I mean, that's what modernity, I mean, that's how our world is created, and what it values, I think, more, I mean, you know. And so thinking more about those simple processes of reciprocity and what we give to community, and what we give to the land too, as part of that. So